yourself believing something just because you want to? Or notice a heated debate where everyone's missing the real point? That's our minds playing tricks. And it's exactly why critical thinking matters.
I've definitely been there. Today we're exploring The Miniature Guide to Critical Thinking Concepts and Tools by Dr. Richard Paul and Dr. Linda Elder, a slim book that actually packs a punch.
We're breaking down what critical thinking really means, why it's essential, and how you can use it to improve your life, whether you're a student, a professional, or just tired of getting tricked by your own brain.
Here's our roadmap. We'll start with what makes critical thinking different from regular thinking. Unpack its core elements and standards, dig into the traps of egocentric and sociocentric thinking, look at how to sharpen your reasoning, and finish with tools you can use every day.
Let's kick things off with the basics. What do the authors mean by critical thinking, and why is it so crucial right now?
So, critical thinking is described here as the art of analyzing and evaluating thinking with the goal of improving it. It's not just about being skeptical, it's about deliberately making your thinking better.
That's such a good point. The guide really stresses that most of our everyday thinking is unchecked, full of bias, distortion, or just plain old gaps. Improving that isn't extra credit, it's central to good decision-making and even how we relate to others.
Exactly, and the authors argue that developing solid critical thinking skills is a life changer. We're talking about raising sharp questions, gathering relevant info, weighing evidence, and drawing conclusions you can actually trust.
And not just for philosophy majors. This stuff shapes our choices, how we solve problems at work, and even how we interact on social media. So, what's next? How does the guide say we should actually structure our thinking?
Funny you ask, because the guide breaks thinking into 8 elements of thought. Think of these as the nuts and bolts of any reasoning process: purpose, question at issue, information, interpretation, concepts, assumptions, point of view, and implication.
I like how practical that is. If you're wrestling with a dilemma, you can actually pause and ask yourself, what's my real purpose here? What assumptions am I making? Whose perspective am I missing?
And if you don't check those elements, you're basically driving blind. For example, you might have solid information but completely miss the consequences, or hang on to hidden assumptions that throw off your whole argument.
Which leads to their next point, the need for intellectual standards. It's not enough to have elements. You have to ask if you're using them well. Let's get into that.
This is where things get rigorous. The guide lays out 9 standards, like clarity, accuracy, relevance, and fairness. Without these, even the smartest arguments fall apart.
Clarity jumps out to me. How often do debates spiral just because people are talking past each other? Or accuracy. So much can go wrong if your facts are off, or you're relying on sketchy sources.
And then there's depth and breadth. Are you oversimplifying? Have you considered other viewpoints? It's easy to stick with what feels comfortable, but that's how blind spots happen.
The authors really push us to ask, am I being fair-minded and logical, especially when emotions run high? But of course, we're not robots. We fall into mental traps, right?
Absolutely. The guide calls out 2 big traps: egocentric thinking, where we assume something's true just because we believe or want it to be, and sociocentric thinking, where we just absorb our group's beliefs without question.
I see that all the time, especially in online arguments or even family discussions. It's wild how quickly people default to "my group is right," even when the evidence is shaky.
And it's not just about opinions. These traps can shut down curiosity and make us blind to new information. That's why the authors insist on developing intellectual virtues like humility, courage, and empathy.
It's almost like building up mental muscles so you can pause, question yourself, and actually grow. Speaking of growth, the guide maps out how we evolve as thinkers. Let's talk about those stages next.
So, the authors outline 6 stages, from unreflective thinker to master thinker. No one's born a master. You have to work through self-awareness, practice, and persistence.
I love that they admit improvement is messy. At the challenged stage, you finally realize, whoa, I've got thinking problems. From there, it's all about putting in the reps, practicing with tools, and getting feedback.
What stands out for me is their emphasis on intellectual traits like perseverance and integrity. You need those to keep going, especially when your beliefs are on the line.
And it's not just personal. It feeds into creating what the authors call critical societies. Want to dive into what those look like?
Definitely. The guide imagines societies where critical thinking is taught and valued everywhere, from classrooms to boardrooms. It's not utopia, but it's clear we need more of that mindset.
And the book isn't just theory. It gives checklists and templates you can use to pick apart arguments, evaluate research, or solve problems more effectively. That's gold for anyone who wants to level up their reasoning.
Plus, there are resources for all ages and professions. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, or a student, you can find guides for detecting bias, asking better questions, or even teaching kids to think critically.
It's such a relief to see practical steps, not just big ideas. Which makes me think, what are the biggest takeaways for listeners who want to apply this today?
Let's wrap up with 3 big points. First, critical thinking is a skill and a habit you get better with conscious practice. Second, great thinking means balancing the elements of thought with universal standards. And third, challenging your own biases, especially egocentric and sociocentric ones, is non-negotiable.
I'd add, don't wait for a perfect moment. Start by applying one tool from the guide. Maybe question your assumptions in a tough conversation, or use their checklist next time you read an article.
And if you want to go deeper, check out the Foundation for Critical Thinking's resources online. There's a whole universe of practical tools to help you and your community get sharper.
Thanks for joining us today. Whether you're just beginning or on your way to becoming a master thinker, keep challenging yourself and watch how your world expands.